For a deep dive discussion on Old School RuneScape's art style, welcome to the stage, Mod Jerv, Mod Skylark, Mod Hend, Mod West, Mod Harold, and Mod Grub.
Hello. Welcome to the art panel for RuneFest. You guys excited? Nice. Yeah. We're going to be having an art style chat and Q&A. And then there will be some questions from the audience, and we'll just raise your hand if you have any, and we'll throw a mic your way. Or not throw it, that's fine. Don't worry about flying mics. So we'll start off with some introductions. I'm Mod Jerv, the concept artist on Old School RuneScape, and my favorite thing I worked on is the DT2 bosses.
I'm Mod Grub, senior concept on Old School RuneScape. I think my favorite current thing is Yama.
So I'm Mod Hend, and I'm a junior animator on the Old School RuneScape team, and my favorite project has to be Mod Jerv for DT2. Yeah, there you go.
I'm Mod West, I'm the senior environment artist, and my favorite project so far has been Varlivore.
I'm Mod Harold. I'm a junior animator on Old School, and the favorite thing I've worked on has got to be Soul Herod in the Colosseum. Yes, Whoa. Colosseum.
I'm Mod Skylark. I'm a character artist, and I think my favorite thing that I've worked on is probably Araxor.
Nice. Before we start the Q&A, I'm going to start with a question for the team just to get the ball rolling, and that is, how do you make something new feel like Old School RuneScape?
It's a big one. Who wants to take that?
Who wants to take that?
I'll jump in first. We spoke a lot about this in our animation presentation earlier. But I think old school animation, some of our software is really geared to kind of stripping things back and making things more bare bone. We use things like a non-fixed frame rate with animation. So that keeps things with that retro, almost like stop motion feel. And we really stick to sort of bold movements, exaggerated silhouettes, that sort of thing to really tell our story. And that's where a lot of our mechanics come into play as well.
Yeah. I think I agree with that, where it's just like, you just have these really strong key poses that just make these little animations just so iconic. Even if they're like janky, you just like it's just got so much charm to it.
Yeah. I think the key word is jank. It's about mastering that jank and being comfortable with it and knowing when to lean into it and when you need to go hard and make something really polished.
You can push it quite far.
You can push it very far, yeah.
Likewise with like characters and stuff, just really optimizing as much as possible because it is like that low poly look and feel that is just like completely old school. So yeah, really trying to do as much as we can, but like with as little as possible, I think.
It's hard. Sometimes we have to hold back quite a lot when we design. Do you find yourself doing that often, and in what ways?
Oh yeah.
I mean, for me, I find that the tools that we use have their own limitations. I think leaning into those limitations really helps us keep it quite restrained and toned down, and I think that really helps quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. At the concept level, of course, we don't have any limitations. We can draw anything and subject these guys to pain. But at some point, the tools are going to come in and put that limitation. But also, we ride with those tools. We don't want to, revamp them and bust open the limitations, because that's going to affect the constraints on the style. We like that the tools keep us in line, and we work with that, and we respect that.
We definitely do. Okay, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand, and we got two mods who can deliver. Yeah, there we go. We got someone in the middle.
Do we have mics?
Over here.
If you keep your hand up.
Keep your hand up.
Keep your hand up?
Yeah, keep your hand up, and a mic will come. I think we had another one over here. I'm not sure.
Nice.
Oh, we got a few over here, too.
Nice, cool.
Did, following the recent stream, did any of you get the tattoo designs?
Did anyone catch that? Sorry.
Sorry, can you say that again? Hold the mic a bit closer to your mouth.
Following the recent stream where you did the tattoo designs, did any of you get any?
Oh, dude.
Not yet.
I really want to get the imp ones I did. No one suggested that. I just wanted the two imps. I recommended the old imp outfit for the rewards simply because I wanted to wear it on my main account. So I wanted to get that tattooed someday. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I really wanted to get the party hat that you did as well. But yeah, I'm still like, I don't know, too scared. I need someone else to do it first, and then I'll like jump in after them.
We need to convince all the JMods to get pie hats. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Hey, when you're designing something new for Old School, and do you start with like a full design and then decide, okay, I need to turn this into like 4 triangles that are going to be the sash of cloth, or are you so familiar and like comfortable with designing in the Old School style that you just fully form it as a blocky Old School style concept art?
So that's a good question. It's everything at once. Sometimes something will come fully formed as a topologized design. Sometimes it comes as a napkin sketch. Sometimes it turns up as something that might even look like it came from RS3, and then we'll bring that down into low poly. So there's definitely a process when we're sketching and designing where we do a topology pass. Basically, in our minds, we think about the wireframe, and we break that down, and we'll draw that in. But that step can come after anything, really, anything at all. But simultaneously, I mean, to take that question a little bit further, things don't always just come from concept. Sometimes the modelers will take something from scratch, or Skylark will just go for it. Maybe you want to touch on that process, because you've got a unique perspective there, I feel like.
Like making concepts or making models?
So making models, but also sometimes you do concepts. So right, you're in this part of the process where you can kind of do both, and you exist somewhere between.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm making like a character model, I'll kind of just literally start from like the most basic primitives and stuff. So like start as low as possible, and then like add detail there, just so like I'm not going in with lots and lots of details and stuff and having to reduce down. I feel like it's easier to start with really minimal things and then add to it. In terms of doing concepts, I think I kind of approach things with, like, again, a very 3D approach, like a very logical, like some of my concepts are not very like illustrative. It's like I'm drawing the model that I know I'm going to make kind of thing. Yep. So then that does influence it to have that very like old school, low poly kind of style. So yeah.
I quite like going pretty crazy in the beginning, just so there's no limitations, just to see how far we can push it, and then you learn kind of with time where you need to pull back in regards to animation and models as well, and it just makes sense to try and do something pretty crazy to excite the developers as well internally. So it's a bit of both, and both are equally exciting, and sometimes when you design something, it just makes sense to do it pretty polygonal from the get-go. So yeah, both work really well. Thank you.
I'm sure everyone here who listened to you would agree that the art is one of the best parts of Old School. So,
thank you.
How do you make sure that, with the team you've got here are fantastic, if some of you were to leave, that the art style is consistent going forward, years down the line?
Very good question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's the engine limits us quite a lot, so I feel like there's almost like a certain limit to how far you can go and stray from the style, and that does help a lot. But even with newer tools, there's a certain, you have to embrace and love the game and the style for what it is, and just do it from that place within you. I think a lot of us has played this game growing up, and anyone that wants to work on this game has played it growing up or has played it in recent times. And you kind of go to that inner part of yourself that's played it and loved it and seen everything novel when they played it. And they go there when you design it. And I think new artists who would work on the game as well would go there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, to touch on the animation part of that process, the way we kind of use the software is really geared to our style. So, for example, we use a bit of Maya and our own in-house software. But even when we're using Maya, which is kind of like an industry standard 3D package, you might not associate with Old School. We have ways of using the software with baking keyframes and using step tangents on animation keyframes, just to really ground it in what we're trying to do with Old School, and still having a sort of stop motion feel to animation, even though when we work, we'll do it like a full kind of free flow, pretty standard pipeline system. We kind of then can scale that back. So even if, hypothetically, new staff members came, they would still work under those same constraints, regardless of their own kind of animation experience.
I actually want to, oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Okay, I want to hear what you were going to say.
I wanted to do a follow-up question, actually, because West, you've been there for quite a long time now. How many years?
Almost 9 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, almost part of the firm.
Damn, that's a long time.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of artists come and go, and I'm curious what's the biggest change you've seen over the years?
Oh, I mean, in the early days, there were so few of us. It's been awesome just to see the team grow and just get better and better. I mean, to be honest, not too many people have left. The art team's stayed pretty consistent over the past couple of years. It's been really nice to see. I think what helps is just we're all using that same sort of era of old school, that sort of 2007 as that sort of North Star. If it doesn't fit with that, then it's not worked out. And I think that's like the most important thing that really guides us. And just, yeah, seeing as the team gets larger and seeing like, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, everyone's just so talented and they have their own view of what makes old school. And it's all just bringing that together. And I think bringing in that personal touch really makes it. Yeah.
It does feel like there's a lot of love for the game within our art team. Like, I don't think there's a single person in the team that just doesn't play and just doesn't adore the art style. Like, every time I make an animation in game and I see it, like, when I'm just playing on my live account, I'm just like, I did that. And I'm so excited. Like, it makes my day. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And you can feel it when we're working on projects like Yammer and stuff. Like, we're just so hyped. We're just so in there.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful experience.
It's exciting. I feel like we all have our niche and our own like personal twist on the art style, but we still keep it fairly synergized, like some kind of weird dance that we do at work.
So that's the point I wanted to touch on, is that we all do come from very different places. And even if the tools keep you constrained, every artist is going to have their bias. So as a group, we really do keep each other together. So if any one of us leaves, we're really making sure this critical mass, this kind of group understanding of what old school is alive in every single member. Yeah. That's super important.
We do have a lot of examples of like what we consider like peak animation for like us animators. Like when we look at like Verzik, we're like, that's like peak animation. That's what we like want it to always be like. So it's just like, yeah, we have our own North Star, you could say.
I think as well, the players, all the feedback we've had over the past, 12, 13 years, it's really helped us guide us. Like, occasionally we've made some missteps in the past, and we learn from that, we take that on, and we make sure we don't make those same mistakes again. And, looking back at my first few years here, it felt like it was quite a continuous thing. We'd put something out, there'd be a lot of feedback, people were like, oh, we didn't quite hit it then. But these past 4 or 5 years, it's just been win after win, and it's just incredible to see how much more efficient and effective we are at hitting that style first time.
It's a fun back and forth with the players. Just to touch on that, it's always a bit exciting to get creative with players because they're as passionate as we are about anything visual in the game. So you get feedback that will take it further than you thought it would go and also helps really make it hit the mark. And I've always appreciated it. It's like you talk to someone on just any social media like Discord or something, and the passion and the in-depth feedback we get is just...
It's awesome.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
And just to touch on maybe a controversial topic, but you could look at old school and think, no one plays that game for the graphics, no one cares about that. But the fact that all of you have turned up today, we do care about it. It's something really cool and unique, and it's not just private. We all see that. So, yeah, you guys hold us to account on that.
Yeah, thanks for coming to this for...
You guys,
That's awesome.
Woo!
That's cool. All right, we'll do another question then. Do you want to point one?
There's loads.
Yeah.
Just pointed at 2 people.
Let's start with this one in the front.
Oh, on the front?
A mic's on the way.
Yeah, mic's being delivered.
The mic's coming.
Okay, hi guys. So my question is, who of you removed the green square in the construction skill? Yeah.
Kind of felt this was going to come up.
So how is coming up the green dot?
So who removed it, or why it's there?
Both.
Both. Okay. So the reason.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we have a very interesting way that our sprites are defined. So back in the day, they really wanted every asset to be as optimized as possible. So when they were like it gets compiled into the final game, there's like a setting on that sprite, and it will reduce the size of that sprite based on how many colors are available. And the reason that pixel arrived in the first place was just a rounding error that appeared. And then one day we updated that sprite sheet, and it got removed. It wasn't like it was like no one like went out of their way to remove it. It just got scraped out of it. So we literally had to go back and manually add it back in because players wanted it so badly. So that's the history behind the green pixel.
There was also the green triangle from the warped scepter where you like stick it out and there was a green triangle in like the very corner. And we just removed it silently, and then also people were just like, "Can we have that back?" We didn't add that one back though. We weren't that generous. We were just like, "Yeah, get rid of it." There's probably some floating around still today. I think there's like on one of the Halloween emotes, there's a green triangle somewhere. I have to find it.
Yeah. They use those anchor points for animation.
Yeah, it's the anchor points. So like on our route of our like spot anims or our VFX, we usually have like a triangle that denotes like where the center of it is, and it's usually a green triangle. And sometimes we just forget to make it transparent or flip it over. So that's the reason why there's sometimes green triangles floating around.
We're only human. It can happen.
Nice. At the end here to the left, or the right?
Yeah, that's right.
Hi, thanks. So, yeah, you've already mentioned that we all love the art style, which we do, so thank you. But my question was, you've mentioned about how you've put your own personal spin on the, old school RuneScape art and in working with like the limitations of the engine and things, but I was wondering if any of you have experienced the inverse. So if maybe some of the ways in which you've had to work with, old school and ways that you've had to adapt what you want to create artistically, have you felt any impact on things you've made in your personal time or personal projects, or has it influenced you guys in any way?
That's a great question.
Yes.
That's a really good
Thanks.
one.
That's such an awesome question. Yeah. I find myself thinking more about 3D form when I draw now, and I have harsher edges than I used to. I render stuff a lot in my personal art style, which is something we don't get to do on the old school art style. And I was surprised to see myself get quite polygonal with how I draw, and I had to like, hang on, I'm not at work right now. I don't have to draw all the polygons. Oh my god.
When I do personal animations, I find myself animating in ticks now. So all my animations just feel like I'm just like, oh, this is just a tick. I'm just going mental.
I think for me, it's like if I'm doing like a character and I've like sculpted it, and then if I'm like retopping it or something, like the try count really weighs on my mind. I'm like, wait, what does it mean it doesn't have to be like 2,500 triangles max for like a boss anymore? You mean I can go over that? Like it just, I don't know. It feels like I have to optimize like as much as possible in my personal work as well.
Yeah.
But I don't really think like modern pipelines kind of work like that as much anymore. You don't have to kind of restrict as much.
Yep.
Yeah, I think about hard edge shapes a lot now because I see them all the time at work. Which is great, but obviously, working on personal stuff sometimes, I think one thing I noticed is just, with rendering, it's like rendering really, really shiny things feels really strange now, because I guess we don't always work with very, very shiny things. So I would say, that's probably the biggest influence. But both are great. I think one thing about working on old school is it really gives you such a grounded appreciation for what, in essence, is quite simple. But when you break it down, and we have broken it down into what makes our style, you really see how complex and how built up this whole process has been over the past, 20, 25 years, and how we respect the style, and we're always sort of trying to build on things, but we still always have that, that grounded respect that's always been there.
I think as well, like working on old school, like has really given me like a whole new appreciation for like low poly art as well.
Yeah.
Like how much you can do with it. Like we don't use textures. We just have the model and then like the vertex color or the poly color kind of thing. So it really makes you appreciate just how much you can do with that and stuff. Like how much like life you can bring into something, environments, character. Yeah, it gives you a whole new appreciation for it.
Yeah.
I was surprised. You kind of, when you work in such a limited art style, it's like core fundamentals wrapped into one model. And I found it helped me a lot with my own personal designs that is simplified. Like it's way easier to actually design something much more complex because you can just take something that would be old school and render it out a bit more, give it materials or something like that, and it still works. It's the core principles. So I found it really helped me with understanding and grasping arts overall. That's been awesome. Thank you for that question. That's cool. With the crown on the right here, left, yeah.
Recently, there was a semi-controversial change to lava dragons. Is there anything else that you would like to change that you think might be a little bit controversial with the community?
Yes.
Yeah.
The sheepdog in the farm near Falador. The sheepdog doesn't breathe properly, and I want to change it. There we go. New announcement.
That is a very ugly animation. You were pointing out to me, and you made it very clear that you did not like it.
This sheepdog has
you just got to do it when no one's looking, and you just got to update it. That's what I did with that that home teleport one, the purple orb one. It used to just hang on a final frame, but I was just like, if I just like get rid of that and make it a smooth transition, will anyone notice? And none of you noticed. Malgathic Sleeps. In Malgathic Sleeps, I updated that, and no one noticed.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, really, because in my time here, I've changed a few assets here and there, and no one's ever really noticed. And then you change the smallest thing, and it's like everyone suddenly kicks up a storm. And it's like, oh, I didn't think they had noticed that. I mean, recently with the Royal Titans, when I was looking at the Asgardian Ice Dungeon, it uses really old kit in the game, and it's effectively like a grey box just made brown. And I needed to then combine that dungeon with another dungeon, which used a slightly updated kit. And so when I came approaching that, I wanted to just bring that dungeon up to a higher standard, make it match the other one. And I was a bit worried that people might kick off, but I don't think anyone's actually noticed. And it was actually quite interesting to see. I think there was one thread on Reddit, and someone was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, oh, fair enough.
Yeah, so just to add to that, we never know when it's going to be controversial. That's the difficult thing. So another one recently, we've been working on sailing, obviously, so we were redesigning the sea texture. Now, one of those experimental textures is live in the game right now. I've had one player come up to us and say, hey, you guys have changed the sea texture. So it's really difficult to know what's sensitive, but it's a path of discovery.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
There you go.
I don't know, because I'm worried that it's going to be like too much of a hot topic. But like in terms of like updating controversial things, we did briefly recently talk about the elves and potentially I know, like potentially revisiting that. Just not. Oh, is that something we like? I don't know. but not like changing the designs in a sense, but just look at how the models look compared to, like, for example, a human avatar. Obviously, they are a different race. They are elves, so they need to look slightly different. But just potentially finding a way to take the designs and the models that we have now and just trying to ground them a bit more into what you'd expect, like a human, but like with elf ears and stuff to look like in Old School. I don't know. It's a very difficult one because that has been a point of conversation for a while, and it's a difficult one to delve into as well. But yeah, that might be something that is potentially, we're not just going to do it overnight, but it might be something that we potentially talk about soon and kind of open that up to feedback and stuff. So yeah, that feels like a controversial one.
With the beard on over there. Magnificent beard, very long, that's cool.
Thank you. So for each of you, what's your single favourite piece of content that you've been involved in?
Oh wow, do we want to start from Skylark this time?
Oh my god, why did you put it on me first?
So I can have more time to think.
I feel like, I know at the start I said Araxor because for me, I had a bit more involvement in like concepts and stuff for that, so it felt like a massive step for me. But in terms of favorite, I really enjoyed Rage 3. That was a lot of fun. But also Valamore has just been really like fun because you kind of get to put a bit of your own like flourishes into it as well, just little bits, little Easter eggs. I mean, I'm literally holding like the capybara right now. Like that was our extra artist here today. Like just doing things like that as well, just being sat there like, oh, I really want to make a low poly capybara. Yeah, okay, let's do it, and then just whack it in somewhere. Like, just doing things like that.
We made some animations, just chucked them in there.
Yeah, favorite piece of content. I think it was actually the first thing I worked on when I joined the company, but Duke Succulus from Desert Treasure 2. Thank you. Appreciate that. That was mental, like literally rocking up day one, and they were like, right, Mod Harold, this is the Duke being shown the concept. I was like, okay, here we go. Thrown it at the deep end. But yeah, that was really memorable. Like the first ever animation was the Duke sleeping. Like it was crazy to work on that. And then like for that to be the first piece of content, Desert Treasure 2, huge quest. Like to see that go out and all the fanfare, like as a first timer, it was huge. So yeah, Duke Circulus.
Cool. I mean, so at the beginning I said my favorite project was Varlamore, and I think it's because that was just such a long time in the making. I put well, obviously we had like a player-made map that sort of gave us this name and this idea of this southern continent, and I put in like a little Easter egg saying like, oh, here's a Knight of Varlamore, maybe we'll go there one day. Unfortunately, it was also a Dark Souls 2 reference, so, oh no, Dark Souls 1 reference, and I was like, oh, this is a bit awkward. Now it's, we're going into this region now, and now we've got to backtrack a little bit and make that a little bit more unique. But yeah, just the whole Varlamore project, being able to like start an area expansion and just do it in 3 really strong batches, and I don't know, just planning it all out, and yeah, it's just been super fun.
Man, with me, it was probably for Varlamore. Just doing all the little bits and bobs like Greenu, Capybara, like just all these little bits that just make it so feel so polished and just feel so alive. That was just so fun, and I learned so much doing all that. But before that, it'd probably be DT2.
It's really hard to answer this question, but probably for me personally, and I won't speak for you, Jerv, but it would be TOA, Teams of the Massacre. That was the first time that Old School had a concept art department that had kind of matured, and we had a big raid to bite into, and we just went to town. We really, really went to town on TOA, and yeah, it holds a special place in my heart, I think.
You are right in that it's a difficult question. I've had many people to give me time to think about this now. I usually say that it's the DT2 bosses, just because it was my first time really trying to dig my teeth into like a big lineup like that. But the recent Delve boss that you saw yesterday is probably my favorite, just because I got to go a bit ham with something demonesque that's not like a very humanoid demon, and just try to tackle that as a creative challenge was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So thank you for that question, that's awesome. Yes, you with the hand waving, yes.
Do you ever work with the music team? And does that also, can that affect how you design and draw artwork for the game?
Another great question. I wish we worked with them more, quite frankly. Those guys are awesome. Due to the nature of our production, they tend to come last, which I think we all grieve a little bit. It would be really cool to start a production and have a whole soundtrack ready so we have that sense and vibe. It can definitely do that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a shame it comes in at the end, but it does really add to the vibe. You've been crafting these environments for so long, and I think with TOA, when we started getting the tracks through, I was just stood in the boss rooms just listening to them like, okay, this is really coming together.
Yeah.
Because it's already at the end of the process, they can really time up the songs and the effects with what we've already made, with all the animations and the boss attacks, and yeah, it's really cool.
When we are able to work with them for animation, and we are able to work like side by side with sound and animation, it's really good. With the Eldermore special attack, we were able to work like pretty much at the same time with that. So we were just able to like fine tune that, and we were just listening to this bassy thud, just being like, yeah, this works. This is good.
Typically, in our pipeline, once we complete an animation, we will have a conversation with the audio team and say, this is ready for audio, essentially. And then they'll take it off our hands. So yeah, it's slightly more segmented than we probably like. Like, they do a crazy job. But yeah, we will complete an animation, give them instructions on, loading that animation, and then they go to town and do their thing.
Thank you. You in the front.
Hi, what do you personally feel about Runelite plugins where it potentially affects like the art style, what the end user sees, such as like animation smoothing or the Ultra HD plugin?
Man,
Go on, Hend.
animation smoothing. I know some people love it. I know some people need it, because like sometimes with our animations, they are too blocky, but for me personally, I can't bear it. Like, I do understand the need for it. Some of you definitely do require it, but I feel like it does take away some of the charm, some of the snappiness, and some of those big key poses that when we make animations and we try and make these charming animations, sometimes it is it's a bit disheartening seeing it, but it's obviously like, I don't know what to say, but it's it's just a necessary evil, I reckon.
That's a spicy question.
Yeah,
Really.
that's a spicy one. I did not like answering that.
There's many facets to it, but to look at just the art style thing, to be honest, it's pretty cool to have you guys work on things, work on mods, change the nature of the game. We get to see that, and there's multiple. We got so many HD varieties and animation. It gives us a lot of insight. So there's a lot of good to it as well. It can be tricky with there being so many presentations of Old School. That can be tricky, especially if you've got a streamer that turns off overlay and has roofs off, and and you just don't see anything. Like that can suck a little bit sometimes for an artist.
I think what the issue is that there's a lot of issues that animation smoothing does bring to the game. So like when you're taking away like decals and stuff, I can kind of understand that. But with animation smoothing in particular, there's just like some things just break because when we animate, we're not animating for them to be smoothed out. So when we make a key pose, we're not like thinking in our heads, oh, this should interpolate like this way or this way. So sometimes you'll just have like, if you turn on the plugin, your character will just snap around and it's just, we don't build our animations for smoothing. Maybe if we did build them for smoothing, they'd look a lot more polished and clean and I'd be a bit more happy with them, but the way most old animations are now, they're just a bit broken.
Yeah, we have this issue where like we tend to hide certain frames at points with transparency, and as soon as you smooth that, it's half transparent when it's in the wrong position, and suddenly, especially with like certain rotations and translations, suddenly something's appearing where you wouldn't expect it to appear, and so it does create a little bit of jank, and not the good type of jank.
What doesn't help as well is that our character model, it's a very old rig, so it's got these old, like, archaic controls that are still being used for, like, the idle pose and the walk and run animations. So when you interpolate that with new animations that have new controls, it just gets real messy really quickly.
I do like the fact that, though, like with those, like not necessarily animation smoothing, but just like with kind of visual plugins in general, like I do really like the fact that players can kind of customize their experience a bit more tailored to them. Like I don't really use too many like visual plugins apart from like kind of HD and animation smoothing.
It's a personal preference. It's a personal preference.
But like apart from that, just kind of like I don't know. I was about to start talking about like kind of helpers and stuff, like like tile packs and indicators and stuff. Like I think it's nice to be able to customize your experience a bit. And I like the fact that people get to do that as well.
Yeah, the tile markers are an interesting one. Some people have a lot, and it is a visual overload for some people. I also notice like a lot of players like to play with the floor turned off, and often that can mean they don't have a floor. And so in recent times, I always try to think about, if the floor's removed, what are they going to see? And I think with the Kefri boss room, I tried to recreate roughly the floor that was modeled in like overlay underneath it. So when they did remove it, it still roughly looked like something presentable. So yeah, sometimes we do need to really think about what we're doing just to make sure that it doesn't just completely ruin the vibe of the game.
The Stranglewood's a good one, where if you remove everything, it's just a white sheet.
Yeah.
There's just nothing there.
Yeah, I get it for gameplay purposes, but it does hurt a little bit when you're like, I worked on this environment, and someone's like about to go take on the boss, and you go in, and it's just like, everything is gone. My nice little tiles are all gone. But I understand why, so.
Yeah.
Good question, thank you. Yes, you in the black hoodie.
In terms of environmental design, are there any areas you'd like to go back to and tweak them and add detail on the level of Varlamore, mainly to like older areas like Lumbridge or Varrock or Falador?
Sorry, can you say that one again a bit closer? Sorry.
In terms of environmental design, would you like to tweak older areas on the level of Varlamore? So areas like Lumbridge, Varrock, and Falador?
Yeah, I mean, updating areas is a tricky one because obviously, they have an established look already. I think the way to do it is to not change. I mean, honestly, there isn't really many I'd want to change. I think we could do some things with toggles if people wanted to because some people really like the Lumbridge walls, which are all textured, while people like the Varrock walls, which are more polycolored. And that changeover is a bit stark, having like an option to toggle that on, so all of your stone walls could be textured or all of them could be polycolor, would be a nice workaround. Any ones that I'd like to change personally? I mean, other than obviously fixing the rest of Krend, which I've been cracking on with over the past 9 years. Eventually we'll go to the northern part of it, but I mean, other than that, I don't think there's too much I'd like to change.
I feel like I wouldn't touch any of the older areas just because, for me, it holds a dear place in my heart. But there's certain areas that could use some love with just the extra attention to detail, not changing anything, but just adding a bit of extra love without changing the feel of it feeling old school. There's like a balancing act of how you do that, I think.
Yep. There are some exceptions. Might be spicy, but I personally would love to rework White Wolf Mountain.
Yeah.
I think it's literally impossible to see where your path is. So there are some sentimental adjustments I would love to make to the old world, but even the thought of putting the pole out there gives me tremors, so probably we'll never get around to it.
You've said some stuff about White Wolf Mountain. You said it looks like a smashed cake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There are some interesting height mapping in some places.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh yeah. There's also this interesting thing because the way the game's made in chunks, you can always, some places you can really tell where they didn't quite smooth out the connection between the two map squares, and there's just this long ridge. And I think in the middle of like Brimhaven and the bottom half of Gramja, there's some really weird ridges that it would be nice to maybe just smooth those out a little bit.
Thank you. Guy on that side, yeah.
He has waited patiently.
When it comes to certain models that are very large, like Zuck and or Leviathan, how do you work on conveying that size when there's an engine limitation stopping you from showing the whole thing?
That's such an awesome question. Thank you for that. I'm going to talk on that on a concept level, because we've done quite a few big NPCs lately, and especially with the Leviathan, we try to tackle that by making the tails appear in the arena around rather than limiting it to the model itself. So you get an impression of that it's larger, but you don't actually know how large it is, which doesn't even answer the size of how big the Leviathan is, which I feel like is a fun way to do it. And we did the same with the Duke as well.
Yeah, so we did it with, we've done it with quite a few. We've done it with Leviathan, Huey, and the Duke. So with Leviathan, we made it so when the Leviathan does an animation, the rings, like the tail sections around him will animate in sequence. So it makes it feel like it's one massive mob, even though it's just like one in the center, technically, like at a code level. Same with the Duke. He's got these other sections around him that are they're so big, they're basically working as separate NPCs. And the same with Huey.
Yeah, it's like hinting towards the size of it. We have it with Sebak is also 2 NPCs, so sometimes we then have to actually make something be multiple NPCs to feel larger so one doing the more gameplay, intricate animations, and the other one being more of a supporting an emphasis almost.
It's the same with Ohm as well, like having the head and then the 2 hands, but not being able to see the rest of it. So there's that kind of mystery as well. Obviously then the pet kind of shows a bit of what's underneath.
I think it's worth pointing out as well that we rock with a fisheye lens effect on our camera. So that can really help with scale. It kind of goes a little bit unsaid, and maybe we don't think about it too much. But in terms of scale, as we use larger models, as that's going to get closer to the camera, things are going to start to look bigger because of that fisheye. So that can really help with scale as well and selling that.
Yeah. We're currently teaming that with Yama now, where we're just kind of focusing on his size now with the animations, just seeing how big we can get him to make him, fill this entire arena.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you can increase the scale by putting an emphasis on the animations and just really kind of getting dramatic with the step. And
we did that recently, where we were just we initially had him quite small, and then the animations kind of reflected that he wasn't too heavy, but then we just increased the size of him, and then made his top just so heavy with his massive biceps. So he's just hunched over, just this constant weight just banging every time he steps. It's really fun.
Okay, we have time for one more question. You in the back with the 3 fingers up.
Yeah, so Butch and Wisp are the only pets with emotes in the game. Is there going to be a future where we could see previous pets or new pets having emotes too?
So can you ask that one again?
Oh, sorry. So Butch and Wisp are the only pets in the game with emotes. Is there going to be a future where we could see all pets have emotes or new pets have emotes?
So with the DT2 emote pets, that was a really weird one because that came very late into development. It was just kind of like we have these animations, and also we had the awakened bosses added at the same time. That was like when the conversation was happening. It's just like, oh, there's animations for it. Can we just do it? It wasn't really like a thing we were planning in the future. If there's enough like support for it, I guess we can have a look at it. It might have to be like a game jam thing. I can't imagine we'd take like time out of like our busy schedules to like add emotes. It just depends really. Like if it's wanted that badly, I don't see why not.
I'd love to see more like emotion
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
with pets. I feel like it gives them a lot of like you work so hard in a lot of cases for these pets and stuff. So for them to then have a lot more personality and stuff,
Yeah.
and it just feels like a lot more rewarding. So yeah, I'd love to see more of that. Like obviously if other people like that kind of thing as well.
It did have quite a fun reward aspect where like if you did if you did the awakened one, you'd get the death emote. So like you could be like, yeah, I did the awakened one. There's just Butch flopping over. But yeah, I really like that. I honestly wish we could do that. So.
Yeah, the more animations, the better. But
Yeah.
I am biased, so. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for coming to the art panel. It's been awesome to answer a lot of amazing questions like I was really thinking as well.
That was
so
really
thank
fun.
you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been awesome. Thank you all so much. All right.
Thank you, guys.